Good afternoon, everybody. It is a Saturday morning edition of Chop Talk, brought to you by the one, the only DFSArmy.com. Your one-stop shop for all things DFS, from NHL to NBA. We've got it covered from A to Z with coaches, content, and tools to make your DFS game better. You need to head down into the comments section, click the link, DFSArmy.com. Come check out the VIP program, where we unlock everything for you for just the one price. You don't pay by the season. You don't pay by the sport. You pay, everything gets unlocked for you once you invest in your own game. Easiest way to do that, use coupon code CHOP, knock off that extra 10%. Jump in and check us out. Let's dive into NHL today. The first thing that I'm going to start with is just an overall page of lineups, because I want to show you something, and we can find this in the research station when we dive into that here in a second. But what I want to show you is how we kind of blend, mix, and match cash game versus GPP type stuff when we're talking about hockey. Because for the overall idea, it's a very volatile sport. Really and truly, cash and GPP, the line is very, very blurred. But it makes an awful lot of sense to do what we typically think of in the other sports. Cash games, we want to take a little bit less risk. We want to spread our coverage out. We might not concentrate on taking just the top Detroit line and then just the top Buffalo line and letting it roll when we have all these other games on the slate to choose from. We might just pick and choose and mix and match and do a little bit from here and there to make sure we got, one or two from here, maybe one from here, one from here. We're spreading out. The other thing that we're going to do for cash type games is we're going to look for the offenses that we target. Let's say we want Buffalo today. I'm going to look, see all these power play ones are on that top line. So if I just took Eichel, Skinner, and Pominville, I'm very, very concentrated. The Buffalo might score 6 goals tonight, and I might look at my little phone and go, holy crap, things are awesome. And then nobody got any goals because it all happened from down in here. So for cash games, I want to spread that risk out. I'm looking to take guys from different lines, but I still want them to be correlated. So how do I do that? I might look at an Eichel, Skinner, Pominville type, pick one of the guys, that I like the best off this line, maybe even two, and then come down here to Middlestat and take him as my third guy, because he overlaps on that power play one. See, what I've got is if a goal comes off of this line, I've probably, with Skinner and Pominville, let's say, I've probably got a good shot at getting a piece of it. However, if a goal comes off of line 2, if I'm totally stacked up here, I miss it. If I'm spread out a little bit with Middlestat here, I might actually have a piece of it. So it helps spread me out. Now, I can still correlate, and I've still stacked a little bit on that top power play unit because Middlestat serves on the power play 1. He'll be out on the ice on the power play with these 3 guys. So Middlestat makes a decent one-off because he's cheap and because he's got access to these big guns up here. 2, he makes a decent stacking partner with 1 or 2 of these guys, because he spreads out your coverage a little bit into that other line, if that makes sense. Another way we may do that is we may use the defenseman. If I came down, now Dahlin's not a perfect example, because ideally I'd like a Ristolainen or somebody up here on the top line. The top defensive pairing's typically on the ice the most, and the top defensive pairing is the one that's going to generally get access to the power play. Now this one gets power play 2, but in a lot of cases you'll find, like Mike Green here, at power play 1. So you're going to get access to these guys through that defenseman as he mans the point on the power play. He's going to pick up a few assists on the power play, get you that bonus, and it's a good way to stack because the defenseman himself is actually going to overlap. This top defensive pair is, or even the second pair, but they're generally going to overlap because they don't come out in units of 5. There may be 5 skaters on the ice, Eichel, Skinner, Pominville, and then, McCabe and Ristolainen, maybe all out 5 out there on the ice at the same time, but they don't necessarily shift at the same time. They may dump a puck in there and then pull that top line of Eichel, Skinner, and Pominville off the ice to switch over to Middlestat, Sheary, and Reinhardt. But what you're going to end up finding is that the defensemen stay out there and overlap. And what that's going to do is give me time with both lines at even strength and then man up on the power play with this top line, in a scenario where this says PP1 instead of PP2. So my defensive pairing is kind of a floater between these lines, and if I've got a high setup guy, like a Brent Burns or somebody, I can take that and use that as access to both these lines, maybe on the third line if it's running really, really hot. So I'm spreading out I'm trying to make sure that I'm thinking about access to everything in the game. I'm not just focusing my power on that top line like I would in a GPP. For cash games, I'm kind of spreading out. Now here's the thing, and this is another common analogy that I like to use with people when it comes to cash versus GPP. Then there's an independent in there, a hybrid, if you in there, that's a blend of both principles. The easiest way to describe it: Democrats and Republicans. I mean, we're getting ready to go vote on Tuesday, right? Democrats and Republicans. You've got one all the way to the left. Let's call that the cash gamers. Those are the ultra conservative, never stack, always, floor only. Don't worry about ceiling so much. Don't worry about ownership so much. Cash, cash, cash games. All the way on the left. Now, all the way on the right, throw caution to the wind. Don't be afraid to whip it out and pee into the wind. What you're trying to do is you're trying to focus all of your power and all of your energy, and you're just trying to hit it just exactly perfectly right to vault all the way up the leader. I'm going to take this guy for lower ownership because I want to use it as leverage. I'm going to use this guy who might get me a 0 but might get me a 35. Then I'm going to stack him so that when the goal gets scored, I get both assists too, and really gambling hard on hitting it exactly perfectly right. Those are your two extremes. And then there's that block that would be your Republicans. Then you've got your block of independent voters. The independent voters, man, they're everywhere. They can lean left, they can lean right, they can be right in the middle, they can change their mind from day to day, from election cycle to election cycle. It's what the right side's always preaching at and telling you, come this way, we're the best, GPP only, woohoo! And what the left is saying, no, temper your expectations, cash safe, cash safe, cash safe. And then that guy in the middle, that independent guy goes, man, I like the idea of the GPP and I like the idea of the cash. I wish there was a way I could blend it. You can. You cut back on the stacking a little bit, but you're not afraid to stack some. You cut back on thinking about ownership, but you do think about it a little bit. You gamble a little bit in smart, safe places, but you're not afraid to typically run cash lineups out there. That's the hybrid guy. That's the guy that kind of runs like the independent voter, kind of in between the two extremes, and he bounces back and forth. Now, that guy's not going to win GPPs, and he's going to be a little bit more boom or bust when it comes to cash games. But he's generally a very safe way to get both the floor and the upside, and that's why you need to read the ladder system at dfsarmy.com, because that's the main thing that we teach, or that I teach inside dfsarmy.com, is how to maximize your contest, maximize your ROI, build for safe, frequent winning, but also have some upside always going at night so that you've got access to 3x, 4x, 5x type nights where you can return 3, 4, 500% ROI. Okay, so we're a little bit off the beaten path, but we want to get back and talk a little bit more about the games tonight and the slate tonight. And what I'm looking at, I'm going to scan down here as quickly as I can and show you that teams like Edmonton, implied team total of 3.2 and odds of minus 140. This is what you can find on this page. But what I look for is goals for in the last over the season and the last 10 games. I see a little uptick in the offense from 3 to 3.3. So Edmonton's running a little bit hot. I'm going to probably give them a little bit of a nod as far as a hotter offense. I'm going to look at the goals against, and it's down 2.8 to 2.5. And I'm going to say their defense is tightened up a little bit. Now, when I go up against a team like Detroit, who gives up the 5th most goals against, an uptick in this offense going against a team that gives up goals puts Edmonton in a favorable spot tonight. So I might be looking for some Edmonton skaters. Scroll down a little bit here to Tampa Bay Lightning, and I see a 3.1 total. Not terrible. I see, again, an uptick in the offense in the goals for. Half a goal per game is pretty big over a 10-game sample size. I look at the defense has stayed about the same. So I've got an uptick in the offense. I come over here, I'm hoping to see an uptick in goals allowed, and I see a 2.75 to a 2.9. So Detroit or Montreal is allowing a little bit more goals. Their defense has played a little bit worse lately than usual. That's another good sign for Tampa Bay. And their offense has slacked off just a touch. Their home record's great. In their last 10 home games, they're over a goal, almost a goal and a half under what the clip they were on. So Montreal is probably cooling off. That's how we use these numbers. As a result, the ITT is a 2.17, which is very, very low in a 6 total game, where the 3.1 is sitting over here on the Tampa Bay Lightning. It puts Vasilevsky in a great spot. I don't know why the minus 118. You'd think it'd be stronger. But these are the things that we're looking at. These are the ways that we're going to look towards these things. So as I scroll down the rest of the list, I'm just going to tell you Pittsburgh is in a very, very good spot tonight. Their offense is trending up. They're the top scoring offense in the league right now. Okay? Washington, is the second most scoring team in the league right now. They're not really trending up. They're kind of staying the same. The game, and then I'll show you in a different sheet. We'll go through that. New Jersey is about the same. New York Islanders trending down both in offense and defense. Defensively puts New Jersey in an okay spot, but New York is not really allowing a lot of goals. The one that I'm really interested in, let's scroll down here and look at Boston. Boston's only a 2.5 implied team total, which is interesting because you would think that would keep us off of them. But their offense is trending up. Goals for up about a third of a goal per game. So it's not the worst thing in the world. But look over here at Nashville. Nashville's defense. Nashville at home plays tough. Their defense plays tough. But when I look at Boston, Boston's running hot right now, and I'll maybe show you that in a little bit too. And so it's a very, very interesting spot. It doesn't look good on paper, but the offense is a little bit too hot right now to really completely believe what you see on paper. Minnesota's in a good spot in that they're trending up goals for-wise, 2.9 to 3.3, almost half a goal. And St. Louis is trending up in their goals allowed from 3.5 to 3.7. So in their last 10 home games, almost 4 goals against per game. That puts a hot offense going up against a defense trending in the wrong direction. It puts them in a good spot. So you might look a little bit at Minnesota tonight. St. Louis, however, is the third most scoring goal in the league, third most scoring offense in the league. So that's another one that's kind of like starting to say sneaky shootout. Because if St. Louis just scores 3-4 goals and Minnesota scores 3 or 4, you've got yourself a decent little shootout that could go 4-3, 5-4, something like that. And you've got a lot of action in these games if you can find the production in there or the value in that game to take some chances on. Calgary, 3.3 ITT, ninth most goals in the league, going up against a top 8 or a bottom 8 defense in Chicago. Chicago gives up 8th most. Chicago's trending down in that direction, though, which is interesting because their defense has tightened up a little bit from 3.6 to 3.3. So, again, temper your expectations. Carolina, not a very good spot, but their offense is running fairly hot. There will be a lot of guys to look for in that offense, but I don't like the 2.6 ITT. I don't like the fact that their offense goals for is trending down a third of a goal a game. It's not a good sign. I don't like the fact they're only the 24th ranked scoring team in the league. Those are a bunch of downward signs on Carolina, but if you look, their recent production is up. Columbus is in a very good spot tonight, probably the best on the slate. Hot offense, half a goal higher, road games a lot higher, trending in the right direction. And LA goals against 3.6 to 3.9, so they're trending up too. They're getting a little bit softer defensively. So you got a hot team running into a softer defense, and it's a very, very good spot. You've also got Columbus, fifth most powerful offense, fifth most scoring goals in the league, going up against seventh most allowed in the LA Kings. So you've got the fifth best offense going up against the seventh worst defense. You've got a hot offense trending up against a softer defense trending down. Very, very good spot for Columbus. So you got to find the production in there. San Jose is also in a very good spot. They're trending up. Philly is trending down, which means their defense is actually getting a little bit tougher. So that's a little bit of a knock on San Jose. But San Jose is 13th in the league in goals scored, and Philly is giving up the most across the board. So that puts San Jose in a good spot just by default. Okay, I'll show you the goalie page one other time, another day, and show you how I find goalies in there. But line combos. This is a new trick here. We put the last 10 games in here. I love looking at big baselines and then small baselines and watching the trends. As this starts to fill in, we got 10, 12 games on the slate. So there's only a couple of games missing here, the first 2 games of the season. But we're going to start finding areas that are going to trend up. You've got your team totals down here, your odds down here. This is really a catch-all page, man. It's the only page you really need. Beautiful. This page is why hockey players become members to DFSArmy.com. It's the best in the industry, in my opinion. There are still some things that you've got to look elsewhere for and find, but this page itself, now that it's back, is up there. You've got our projections. You've got the Fanduel and DraftKings pricing. You've got implied scoring percentages based on projections. And then you've got goals, assists on the season versus goals and assists over the past 10 games. And you can see who is trending up and who is trending down. Green is good, red is bad. Look at the green in the Edmonton Oilers. I told you, pay attention to Edmonton tonight. They're trending up. Their offense is in a good spot, that top line. The second line down here, a little. Not so much. So I'm going to go scanning through here. I would say Dylan Larkin, maybe a one-off, but at 6,400, probably not, right? I would be looking, if I wanted to get pieces of this top Edmonton line going up against a softer defense in Detroit. I would scroll down. You've even got power play numbers if you want those. So we're going to scroll down a little bit more, and we're going to find the Tampa Bay line. Tampa Bay 1 is okay. Tampa Bay 2 is a little darker green and the goals scored. Point, Johnson, Gord are a little bit hotter in this area, and they're going to be a little bit cheaper in the price tag. See the 7,000s up here and the 6,000s, 5,000s down here. This is your value play. And remember, on the road, we tend to favor the second line because the home team has last shift, first right of refusal to shifting the matchups and whatnot. Whatever you want to call it, they're the ones that get to react to what the other team does. So if Tampa Bay throws their top line out there, and Montreal knows that that's the softer defensive unit, they're going to come and get them, and that's going to match the 2 up against the 2, which might be their softer defensive unit, or vice versa. Whatever it is, oftentimes just think general, very, very, very general rule. There are exceptions to this rule all over the place, but a very general rule. When you find a second line scoring and it's doing well and it's on the road, don't be afraid to take them. Line 2 on the road, line 1 at home. Okay? Doesn't work all the time, but it's not a bad thing to just kind of have in the back of your head. So I would be looking at Tampa Bay 2 as well tonight. When I look down at Montreal, I'd be interested right here, green across the board, and Tomas Tutter. This is the one, 4,800, still cheap. He's producing. This is what I'm looking for in a one-off type of situation tonight. I'm not expecting Montreal to win the game. I'm not expecting a great game. I'm expecting average production out of Tutter, and a cheap one at that at 4,800. That's where I'm at. Scroll down here to Toronto. Toronto's really cooled off. A lot of green. They're missing Austin Matthews. And I come down here to the defense, not so much. I mean, you might look at a Morgan Riley, but he's taken a little bit of a downtick lately. His numbers were darker green than this. And I'm looking at the second line, not so much. So I'm not really interested in Toronto tonight. I would say that I'm interested in Pittsburgh because look at all the green over here, especially Letang if I'm going to pay up for defense. 6,200 is a lot to ask, but he's producing like crazy. Top line's okay. I don't know. 11 games, 5 assists, 18 shots is a little low for me and Simon, but getting the top line, getting exposure to Crosby and Gensel's not terrible. I'm going to really come down here and focus more on these two, Kessel and Malkin. If I'm going to pay up for anybody and pay 16,000, it's going to be that. I'll probably end up taking a one-off in Malkin if I use it at all, because Malkin gets me access to Crosby on the power play. When you look here at the power play number, the 1-1, down here the 2-1 tells me second line, of course, first line, of course, and then 1 and 1 top line on the power play. So when I come down here and look at the power play, I'll find Malkin and Crosby in both spots. Okay, and I see a couple of goals, 3 goals between the two, 6 assists between, they're producing, and I see a high ITT of 3.26. I'm going to want pieces of Pittsburgh tonight. I can take Malkin and run. Or if I really wanted to, I could look into some of the deeper value plays, but I'm not really all that interested in it. I'm just going to go where I know the production is going. Dallas, kind of a shit show right now. Not a lot of numbers to really look at. I mean, Klingberg would be fine, but 6,600. I'd rather take Letang at 6,200. I look over here at Washington. Washington's in a better spot, 3.25 ITT. Looking at the top line with a lot more green on it. Niskanen is interesting here. So, you could run Kuznetsov in here. Doesn't have any goals on the year. 34 shots on the season, 4 blocks, 38, not terrible. You're going to pay up a big time for Ovechkin. I like my Kuznetsov exposure. If Ovechkin has a big day, Kuznetsov probably got some apples with the production, and that's a good thing for this number, for the 7,500 number. Ovechkin can break the slate, but he tends to be a little bit boom or bust. This year he's been pretty good. I mean, I'll give you that. And then down here at Jacob Vrana is double green at 3,800. It's going to be probably pretty chalky today. A lot of people are going to be liking that. You get a little power play time, but you're not on the one with these top dogs. My favorite play, honestly, night in and night out for Washington for exposure is to grab Kuznetsov and Oshie. It gives me that overlap I was talking about before. It gives me top line with Kuznetsov exposure to Ovechkin, second line exposure to a decent line with Oshie, and then they overlap on the power play 1. So for what, 7,500, and Oshie's never priced up into the 8,000s. So $13,800. I've got double exposure on the power play to Ovechkin where he does most of his damage, and I've got double line scoring. So when Washington's the second most scoring team in the league, and they got a high ITT of 3.25, this is my way in cash of getting into this game, getting good pieces of it, and then getting out. without spending too much money. I would throw a Niskanen in here. It's funny that Carlson's not up there on this line right now because Carlson's producing okay, and he's awfully expensive at 6,300. But Niskanen up here on the top line gives you, again, overlapping exposure to both lines. So you've got a little bit of correlation with Kuznetsov, a little bit of correlation with Oshie on any given moment, and then they all overlap on the power play except Niskanen falls off of the ice there. But Niskanen's producing. 0.2, 0.4 assists, goals, and assists per game. Gets you some shots and some blocks a little bit here and there, and at 4,300, he's pretty cheap. I'd throw him into the stack. Now, 3 skaters from the same game, man, that game better go off for you, or you're going to really hurt on a 12-game slate. But it's not a terrible risk to take tonight. Scrolling down a little bit more, New Jersey Devils, Palmieri is still the key. Taylor Hall, 76, Palmieri, 65. For $1,100, I get the same shots on goal. I get higher goal production out of Palmieri right now. Taylor Hall is overpriced for the way he's playing right now. I would look at Vatanen here at the double green. See what I'm doing? I'm just picking through. I wouldn't touch anybody here except maybe Anders Lee, but he's too expensive for like some kind of a cheap value one-off. He's the only one producing on New York consistently right now. 3.08 totals, not terrible. Now, we talk about the Boston game a little bit, and we're looking at the top line. Look where all this production is coming from. All this production is coming from that top line. Second line defensive pairings, not much. A lot of red. Bang. It's all concentrated right here. So if anything's going to happen tonight, it's going to come off this top line. What I do worry about, so keep that in your mind going forward. It's not a good spot tonight with a 2.5 implied total, and Nashville plays tougher defense at home, and we saw they were already trending towards tougher defense as it was. I would look over here at the Nashville side, though, and I would say these top 2 on the top line, Johansson and Forsberg. I don't like Sissons. He's not producing. He's 3,300. I don't know if anybody's going to run to him necessarily. Boston's been suppressing goals lately, but if you're going to get top-line scoring, it's going to come out of these 2 here without Arvidsson. You look at Josie and Ellison, it's okay. Josie at 6,000. I'd rather have Letang as maybe even a one-off up there in Pittsburgh at 6,200 if I was paying up in that price range. I do like the second line in Nashville okay. I'd like to see him run a little bit hotter, but Turris isn't a bad spot to take for 5,300. A little bit of salary relief there. I look down here at the bottom defensive pairing, and, again, it's just kind of okay. Ekholm at 4,700 is a little intriguing, but I'd like to see him running a little hotter than he is. Okay? Lower total, both teams under a 3. Probably not the most attractive game, but what I'm pointing out is where the concentrated power is in Boston and where it is in Nashville. So when they are in better spots, you can jump on them. Minnesota, St. Louis might be a little bit higher scoring game, as we already kind of pointed out. Where's the production coming from in Minnesota? Actually down here on the second line. Parise and Granlund. Maybe Eric Stahl up top. 7,100 is going to cost you with 2 sub-K or sub-5K wingers, though, isn't going to get you a heck of a lot of balance unless you want to take a GPP shot on it. Your balance is going to come down here in the $5,000 and $6,000 players, Koivu, Parise, and Granlund. Second line on the road, facing a team that gives up goals. Okay? That's actually a pretty good line tonight. Now I'm going to look over here, and I'm going to point out St. Louis. And I don't see a lot in running hot except for down here. Look at how green this second line is. So you want to run Minnesota 2, St. Louis 2, man, go for it. Be my guest. I might run a Ryan O'Reilly as one of my primary pieces tonight because, again, he gets me access to both, and he gets me access to that top power play. The top power play has been okay. 7 goals, 15 assists. As you can see, Riley's got 6 of the assists. With that little bonus point in there for Fanduel and DraftKings scoring, the extra bonus for the power play assist, not a bad chance to take. But I might surround him with a little David Perron or a little bit of Zach Sanford. Being Zach Sanford's dirt cheap at 3,400, this would probably be one of my core value plays on the night. And hope it pans out. It's a volatile game, man. I'm just showing you the logic behind it. The logic is we're putting together 3 goals and 4 assists in 6 games. Not shooting a lot, but he's passing the puck around quite a bit. And he's producing. So give me O'Reilly and Sanford. I've got myself spread out. I've got myself stacked on line 2. I've got myself a little bit of power play 1 exposure to Tarasenko, somebody that might score on the top power play unit. And that's how I would roll that game out, and I would focus on this line over here. That would be a game to target. There are better offenses tonight, better spots, but that would be a place to go. When I look at Calgary, I look at a lot of concentration up here on the top line. Giordano's in a great spot. A little bit of concentration on the second line. So again, 7,000s or 5,000s. Which one do you want? Depends on what kind of salary relief you need. 3.26, not bad. Both lines are producing with an overlap in Giordano. Giordano at 5,900 would be up. He might take me off of Letang at 6,200 to save the $300. But both are fine. Both are in good spots. Over here, Animasov is in a decent spot with 6 assists on the year. He's producing. He's fairly cheap at 4,400. If this game shoots out, that would be where you'd want to be, and you'd want to brink it on the top line. I mean, we all love Kane, we love Taves, but I don't know. Kane's not on this list. Maybe he got hurt again or something. I'm not really sure, but I don't see a lot of production to really make me dive in and want pieces. 7 assists is nice out of Jokey here, but what I'm seeing is 11 blocks, 37 shots, which is great at 48, 2.5, and at 3,600. That's a cheap floor with some assist upside. There's no power play time, though. I'd like to see some of that. Carolina, Vegas. Another game that's not terribly attractive, but look at the concentration on the top line in Carolina. That's what you're after. You want to go picking through there. Now, the prices have come up on Ferland. He was a great value play for a while. His price is getting up there. He needs to keep producing, or he hurts you more than he helps you on nights he duds. It's not like he's 4,100 where he doesn't hurt you on a night that he duds. He is starting to get to the point where he does need to produce for you. Come down here on the second line. Justin Williams, not terrible at 5,000, but I mean, I'd probably rather have Ferland and access to all of this production. But look over here at Vegas. Marchessault's not a bad spot to go, but he's a one-off candidate. If I wanted the one-off candidate to kind of hit and run this offense, it'd be down here at Alex Tuck. 4,700. Got myself a decent set of production across the board. Now I know we're at home, and I said the 1 at home and the 2 on the road, but at 4,400, 4,700, you almost can't refuse if you need the cheap stuff, and you're not doing like a Sanford with the Blues, or somebody else in the other offenses that we mentioned. It's another value play. Under a 3 total, it's okay. It's not great. Columbus, concentrated power, once again on the top, Atkinson and Panarin. Dubois is okay in spurts, and he's been okay lately, but most of your production's coming from these two guys. I love the defensemen, but they're not running very well right now. As you can see, no green. There is some green here, but there's also no goals to go with it, and no shots. Shots and blocks are your floor. That's where your baseline production is going to come from. If somebody doesn't have a ton of shots and blocks, I don't like them. If they do have a ton of shots and blocks and they're dirt cheap, I love them without production. But if they're a normal price, you need both. You need shots and blocks and you need production. Both these defensemen are out for me. These two guys aren't running very hot up here. I don't mind this second line as much because it's got some cheap access to stuff, but the top line's where I'm focused. Run over here at LA, don't like it at all. Carter was okay, Dustin Brown is back, Drew Doughty's okay, but they're not producing right now. I don't need any piece of it. Might be famous last words because Columbus has been giving up goals, double checking those numbers really quick, 6th most in the league. But I just don't see LA capitalizing. Philly's been giving up a ton of goals. San Jose, like I said, was in a great spot. If you want Philly, you're looking at Gareau, but he's expensive. He's going to cost you. You're looking at Voracek. He's expensive. He's going to cost you. Probably the only couple of places I'm really looking right now. I'm going to come over here to San Jose, though, and I love the top line with Timo Meier. How hot can you get when you're green across the board and you're only 5,200? Core play. Pavelski isn't bad. Thornton's a little cold right now. And then I'm going to come down here. Brent Burns always in play, but nobody ever pays up to get him because he's unaffordable almost based on the way we typically build our lineups. I'm coming down here to this line right there. I'm stacking the crap out of it. Hurdle, LeBlanc, and Couture. They're all producing. They're all cheap. 17.2 for a line isn't terrible. I know it's only 17.5 for this top line up here, but you've got a little bit of a thorn in your side in Thornton. You've got all 3 rolling well down here. What you might do, again, this is a GPP stack. Boom, boom, boom. However, for a cash type of stack, you may focus on Couture and Timo Meier. You've got you've got a little bit of wishy-washy. It's not overlapped on the power play. It should be. I thought Timo was on the 1. It should have been. But what you're looking at is spreading across those different lines and hopefully overlapping on that power play. So really and truly, you might run LeBlanc and Meier because you've got 2 different lines of scoring, and then you overlap on the power play too. Or you might run Couture, and Pavelski's not really passing the puck all that well right now. But these are the types of things that you're looking to do in overlap. It's not a perfect situation. If Meier was on the power play 1, it's a perfect situation with Couture, Meier, LeBlanc, Meier, Hurdle, Meier, any of it, because you're spreading out and then you're overlapping on the 1. 3.36. I want to say 3.4 rounded up is the highest implied team total on the night. San Jose is trending up, 13th in the league in goals scored and climbing and facing the team giving up the most goals in the league. If you're not getting San Jose exposure tonight, even though it's a high variance game, you're doing it wrong. Okay, that's most of the games. That's running down, showing you the greens and the reds, showing you why you need access to the research station if you're playing hockey in out there in DFS land, and you need to be a VIP inside DFS Army to do it. So if you want the coaching, you want more explanation on how to use these lines and kind of mixing and matching. I'm not going to critique lineups. Lineups come in and hey, how's this look for cash? I don't fucking know, man. Pardon my French. It's a volatile sport. It could go anywhere. I have no idea. It might be great. What I'm going to look for is how you're stacking your lines. And I don't care what you do otherwise, other than stick to the high implied team total games, stick to the guys that are producing, and throw the dice in the Yahtzee Cup and roll it out and see what happens. That's hockey. That's also baseball. So there's not a lot of critique that actually happens in those games because the volatility is there. The winners are the ones that allocate their contests correctly, manage their bankrolls correctly, don't overdo it. Those are the guys that win in hockey. And I can teach you how to do that. Okay? So become a VIP. Click the link in the bottom there. Use coupon code CHOP, C-H-O-P. Come on inside. Let's talk hockey. Not necessarily how's my lineup, but let's talk production, players, spreading out or concentrating. Is this, am I going to attack a GPP tonight, or what's kind of the slate looking like, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. That's how we roll inside DFSArmy.com. Hope to see you inside. And I'll talk to you guys later when we talk NBA and NFL later in the week. See you.